This is review lesson 4, all conversions, and this is found on page 12. Directions: convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages. And what's going to be helpful for you during this lesson is if you know your factors of 100. So right in this space here, let's go write down our factors of 100. Write down factors of 100. So we have 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, and finally 10 times 10. These are all of your factors of 100. Part 1, this part says convert using proportions. Underline proportions. And the easiest proportion that you know is A over B equals A over B. The important thing to keep in mind here when you convert from a fraction into a percentage is to remember what percent means. So percent means per 100. Write it down. So in box A, we need to convert the fraction 33/50ths into a percentage. Once again, percent means per 100, but if you look at box A, we don't have per 100, we have per 50. So use a proportion just like this, and let's convert it into a fraction per 100. So write down equals blank per 100, and now all you have to do is make it fit. So write down make it fit. So 50 fits into 100 2 times. Times 2 on the bottom, times 2 on top. 33 times 2 is 66. And now just say the answer twice. Once with per 100, and the second time with percent. So we have 66 per 100, 66%. And that's how you convert from a fraction into a percentage. Next, let's turn this percentage into a decimal. So add a decimal point where it belongs after 66. And to turn it into a decimal, just move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So if we go 2 places to the left, away from the percent symbol, this is where the decimal is going to go. You can add a leading 0. So it's going to be 0.66. Write it down. Next, letter B. We have the fraction 3/10, and we need to convert it to a percentage. Percent means per 100, but we only have per 10. So set up your proportion. Write down equals blank per 100. And now just make it fit. So 10 fits 10 times into 100, times 10 on the bottom, times 10 on top. 3 times 10 is 30. And now that we have a fraction per 100, we can convert it into the percentage. 30 per 100, 30%. There you go. Next, convert this percentage into a decimal. So put a decimal point where it belongs after the 30. And we're going to scoop twice to the left, away from the percent symbol. 1, 2. Decimal, add your leading 0. So it's 0.30. Write down 0.30. And you can simplify this even further. Since it ends with a trailing 0, you can cross it off, you can omit it. So your final answer is just 0.3 or 3/10. Let's take a look at the other side. Now, instead of converting using proportions, we're going to convert using division. So underline division. And the reason you want to convert using division for these problems is if you tried using a proportion like this, 8 does not fit nicely into 100. So this actually makes the problem more difficult if you try to solve it using a proportion, if you haven't memorized how many times 8 goes into 100. So for this one, we'll use division instead. We have 1 divided by 8. So don't write too big, otherwise it's not going to fit. Write down 1, and then divided by, then 8. And for this problem, you're going to need a decimal and 3 zeros. Touch that decimal, make sure it goes straight up. And now we can start dividing. So 1 divided by 8 is too small. We can look at 10 divided by 8. So we can't do 10 divided by 8 evenly, but we can do 8 divided by 8, so write it down. If 8 divided by 8 equals 1, then 1 times 8 equals 8. True. Subtract. 10 divided by 8 equals 2. Now you can bring down the 0. We can't do 20 divided by 8 evenly, but we can do 16 divided by 8. Write down 16. If 16 divided by 8 equals 2, then 2 times 8 equals 16. That's true, so subtract. 20 minus 16 equals 4. Bring down the next 0. And 40 does divide evenly into 8. So write down 40. If 40 divided by 8 equals 5, then 5 times 8 equals 40. True, subtract, end of problem, no remainder. So our final answer is 0.125. And to help people notice the decimal point, go ahead and add a leading 0 in front. So our decimal answer is 0.125. Now convert this decimal into the percentage. So when you change a decimal into percentage, this looks totally weird because the percent symbol does not go on the left side. It goes on the right side instead, on this side here. So this decimal is going to chase it. It's going to chase that percent symbol 2 times to the right. So touch and count 1, 2. This is where the decimal goes. Add the percent symbol, so you'll end up with 12.5%. Write it down. 12.5%. And box your answer for the percentage and for the decimal. Next, let's take a look at part 2. So we need to convert the decimal into the fraction, and then we're going to simplify. So the hint for this section is to remember to pronounce the decimal correctly. Write down pronounce correctly. So we'll do box H and box I. Box H, this decimal, since it's in the hundredths place, is pronounced 4 hundredths. And the fraction is also 4 hundredths. There's your answer. And now we can just simplify. So 4 hundredths can be simplified. Divide by 4, divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So your final answer is 1/25. Here's box I. This is in the tenths place value. So this decimal is pronounced 4 tenths. And that's the exact same pronunciation as your fraction. 4 tenths. And now just simplify. Divide by what? Divide by what? So for this one, we can divide by 2, divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So your final answer, 2/5. Let's take a look at the right side. So let's convert this percentage into a fraction. And once again, remember what percent means. Percent means per 100. So here's letter M. Say it once with percent, and then say it again with per 100. We have 60%, 60 per 100. And there's your answer. So all you have to do is just simplify this. There's different ways that you can do it. So here I know that we can divide by 20, and that'll give me 3/5. If that's a little difficult for you to figure out, you can do it in 2 steps instead. So one way you can do it is notice that they both end in a 0, which means you can divide by 10, divide by 10. Let's try that. Divide by 10, divide by 10. And notice the fraction 6/10 is a lot easier to simplify. So here we go in green. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So your final answer, once again, is 3/5. Last one, letter N. We have 53%, change it into a fraction. Remembering that percent means per 100. So 53%, 53 per 100. And this number is already simplified. There's no other way we can simplify it other than divide by 1, which will give you the same thing anyway. So your final answer is 53 hundredths. Here is part 3. Convert percentages into decimals and convert decimals into percentages. So let's do 4 problems on this side. So we're going to convert the percentage into a decimal. It helps if you add the decimal point at the end of the whole number to make it easier. Just like that. And now just move this decimal point 2 places away, 2 places to the left, away from the percent symbol. And notice that you should write a leading 0 here so that you can make your move more easily. 1, 2, that's where your decimal goes, add a leading 0. So we have 0.03. Box S. Make your move. Move it 2 places to the left, away from the percent symbol. 1, 2, decimal, leading 0, 0.30. And you can drop that trailing 0, so your simplest answer is 0.3. Go to box U. U and V, be super careful with these two because students have a tendency to mix them up. So once again, make sure you have your decimal point right after the whole number. And now you can do your 2 scoops to the left. 1, 2. That's where your decimal belongs. So 1.00 is equivalent. And you can also drop those trailing zeros. So a final answer of just 1 is the simplest answer that you can come up with. 1. Letter V. We need to make 2 scoops to the left, so it helps if you add a leading 0. And now when you do your 2 scoops, 1, 2. Decimal, leading 0. 0.01. All right, let's finish up with the other side. Convert these decimals into percentages. And remember, when you convert a decimal to a percentage, this looks weird because this is not where the percent symbol goes. It goes on the other side. So allow this decimal to chase the percent symbol 2 times to the right. Here we go. Touch and count 2 scoops. 1, 2, that's where the decimal goes. So this will be 73%. Letter Z, 2 scoops to the right, 1, 2. You don't need all of these leading zeros, just keep one of them. So your final answer will be 0.9. And actually that's 0.9%. Last one, letter A. To make it easier to do the 2 scoops, add a trailing 0. 1, 2, decimal goes there. Add your percent symbol, we have 90%.